Awesome. Welcome to our March 19th Outreach and Network Guild meeting. Happy spring. I believe equinox is today-ish. Very exciting. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see Outreach Guild meeting agenda? Awesome. All right, we could start off. Oh, we could start with a land acknowledgement. Would anyone like to do one? Ben, you're up.
I'm always happy to do a land acknowledgement. And Roland and I were talking about, we both really appreciated the one that you did, Ronnie. And
Oh,
and I think I want to dip into that experiment. So we're going to combine a little bit of grounding and land acknowledgement at the same time. So I invite you all to take a moment just to make yourself comfortable in your seat. Put your feet firmly on the ground and take a deep breath in, feeling cool, refreshing air entering your lungs. And as you exhale, allow the weight of your body to press down into the seat. And as you're feeling into the seat, the weight of your body in the seat, feel the support of the earth coming up through the structure of the building and the seat, holding your weight, holding you to the planet through gravity like a hug. And just take a few breaths, breathing in cool, energizing air. And as you exhale, allow any stress or tension or tightness, stiffness or discomfort just to drip off of you. Imagine it like mud or liquid just dripping off of your fingers and down to your toes and off and dripping onto the earth itself, knowing that the land takes everything and transforms it and returns it with life and abundance. And as you are here in the place that you are at, I encourage you to think, if you can, to the north, whatever that is for you, and to the east, what lies in that direction, and to the south, and to the west. And experience yourself as an organism in the middle of the four directions, here in this place, in this physical place. And as you do so, take a moment to think about the land that you are part of and the history of that land. Who are all the people who have been tending it before you? Who are all of your neighbors and relations who are currently tending it? And in doing so, we reconnect with ancient wisdom, wisdom that has been held by indigenous peoples for time immemorial. And in reconnecting with that, we also reconnect with a healthy sense of responsibility and obligation to care for that which cares for us, and to recognize that harms have happened, harms continue to happen. And so we also make a commitment to ourselves and to each other to, at the very least, minimize the harm, and wherever we can, to encourage the healing. And wherever you are, I invite you to take a moment to offer gratitude to the indigenous cultures where you are and to the stewardship that they've done for time immemorial. And to make a personal note to yourself to find more ways of connecting and of healing. And take one more deep breath in, breathing in all your relations, all your connections, all the energy. And as you exhale, just allow any discomfort just to leave your body, leaving you fresh and present. And then count backwards to yourself. 3, 2, 1, and join us back in the space.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And I have come up with a check-in question for all of us to get our circle started today. And to honor the equinox, the question is, what is turning for you? What is turning for you? And the circle as I see it is Ben, Pam, Linda, and Roland, and I'm typing that into the chat.
What is what is turning for me? Oh, ideas are turning. I think I continue to be affected by hospice and modernity. And so it's turning because I'm chewing on it. I'm letting some of the ideas roll around in my head. So I've been very distractible for the last couple of days, and which I am comfortable with. I think that's part of my creative process. I kind of front load and then churn a little bit and eventually set it aside, and then the timer goes off and something comes forward. So that's what's turning for me. All of the really delicious ideas that hospicing modernity has churned up. And I pass over to, I think it was Pamela? Yeah, yeah, over to you.
Um, that's a fun ride, hospicing. And that never stops turning so far. But I am very aware of a seasonal flip. And in particular, yesterday when I was sitting on the so I guess that's a kind of internal turn as well, or churn as far as the emotionality that comes up, and then it interrupts my ability to speak clearly. Anyway, as I was trying to say, sitting on the banks of Bowker Creek, and the water is lowering, but it was greening. And this is a particular stretch of the creek not far from the estuary, and just down from the ravine that had been filled in by the Hudson's Bay Company when they arrived, and they needed a trash bin. And they also needed to get rid of the First Nations people who lived here. And filling in the creek at that point was kind of a multi-purpose grab. But at this other stretch, the creek still flows within the banks of its own making, more or less. And to see the green come up, and if I can get through this without crying, because who does not cry over skunk cabbage, there was one magnificent bloom of skunk cabbage on the banks of the creek in a bed of buttercups. That marriage of the indigenous with the invasive was really present. And the complexity of it, like, I mean, just having to hold all of that all the time. And then there we are in this weird spring. Weird to me because of the cold and then sudden warm and so on. Just how Earth holds this complexity without discrimination and without complaining. and getting on as best she can. And with a little help from her friends, which the Friends of Bowker Creek do provide and have uh, daylighted the possibility for her in this space. Well, it's spring, so my spirit's sprung. And that's kind of a long-winded check-in, but okay. So Linda, please. Nice to meet you. I may have met you before, but every day is a new day. You're on
You're
mute.
muted, Linda.
Sorry about that. So I'm out in the desert right now, have been since Saturday, and it's absolutely glorious out here, although you can really tell we're in the middle of climate change. We've got wildflowers just galore, and every 10 minutes the sky changes. It's something else. Last night we saw the rocket. I don't know if you guys were probably not south enough, but a rocket went off Vanderbilt Airport, and I'd never seen anything like it before. So I guess what's turning or working me, and I've also been listening to a lot of podcasts as I walk out in the desert, on just what's happening in the world and how in the not too distant future, with AI and all of the escalation of war and all this stuff and Trump and all this, our world is just going to be so different. It's just so different. But I so appreciate that I can always go out into nature, like out when I'm at home, I can go to the ocean. Here I just do all these wild walks out in the desert, just the nature, just the I just what's the word? I just cross country it. I don't even follow a path. So there's something about the future coming at an enormously fast pace, but the beauty of how nature can still contain us, and I guess we'll be here forever. And I guess that's what's turning me, turning me around and around. Let's see who's next here. Sorry, I'm a little unorganized.
It's okay. It's me.
It's rolling. Yeah.
Uh, and thanks for the sharing so far. Um, uh, I find myself in a state of mind where I'm not coming up with anything. So instead of trying to force it, I'm going to take in what I'm hearing, and I shall take the opportunity that I always have to pass. So over to Ronnie.
I think there's a lot. What's turning for me is a deepening into myself. I'm in a 3-month training program for facilitating a climate grief program. It's a 10-step program. So I did the program in the fall, and now I'm training to facilitate it. And it's really deep. There's just a lot of our homework is listening and reading and watching lots of amazing resources, a lot of stuff that comes up in Lifeboat, and a lot of inner work, and there's a big emphasis on facilitating as an imperfect being, showing up and being of service, and you're gonna make mistakes and it's all good. And so I'm feeling this deepening in myself as I step more into the role as a facilitator. And it's feeling really good, and it's also feeling difficult and confronting in some ways. So a lot of being with myself. So yeah, but I'm grateful, and thank you all for sharing. I really enjoyed your check-ins. All right, so I will bring our attention to our agenda for today. which Ben has populated in Asana. Thank you, Ben, for that. Make it full screen. So the topics as we have them currently are: what do new members need to know for onboarding for this guild specifically? What are the seasonal priorities for the guild? What is the right pulse for ongoing lifeboat circles and navigation sessions? We are also tasked with scheduling times for upcoming onboarding sessions, so Asana, Slack, and Sociocracy. And I also added what goes in the weekly email this week. So our weekly email is going out every 2 weeks now. And I've been sending it out Tuesday, which would be today, or Wednesday. So I thought it would be useful if we could just go over together quickly what could go in the email. Is there anything else anyone would like to add to the agenda? Ben?
I think debriefing the design school, birthing bioregional learning centers.
Awesome. And I'm not really sure how to decide what to cover first other than just going through the list. Does anyone have any? Yes, Pam.
Can you provide just a quick navigational prod so that I know where I've got the Asana page open for the outreach, but it doesn't look the same as yours. I don't know if you want to do anything technical like that, or maybe there's going to be an opportunity. I'm sorry, I haven't really become that
I think
versed with Asana.
I think at this point for the meeting, you can just follow along.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things to schedule is the Asana training. So,
Mhm.
But at this point, I don't think there's any need for you to follow along.
Okay.
If you can get it to work, that's great. And if not, don't worry about it.
Awesome. So I suppose we can start with the first one and do a round of considerations.
Actually,
Ben.
Ronnie, sorry, just can I make a suggestion that we just do a quick round and get people's ideas on what the priorities should be?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and I guess that would be start with me.
I guess we can start with you, yeah.
Well, I think for me, there's some timeliness to scheduling the times. And I feel like in some ways, talking about the right pulse of lifeboat circles and navigation sessions really is talking about seasonal priorities. It's almost like those two topics are really the same. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm starting. So Pam, over to you.
I'm going to pass. Linda?
I don't have anything to add. I guess I'd like to know more about what is meant by the right pulse and seasonal priorities. Maybe what have they been, so I can kind of, I myself don't feel like I've been onboarded to this group, so I'm not going to add anything at this point. I'm just kind of a fly on the wall. Off to you, Roland.
Well, it sounds like talking about onboarding is a good place to start. I was also curious. I thought, is there a place in the agenda to talk about the Heartwork group in relation to the lifeboat circles? Is that just the third one in here about when we talk about the pulse? Okay, so I will leave that. So over to Ronnie.
Awesome. So, I guess we can start with or what it sounds like to me it might be useful is to start with what do new members need to know to be onboarded to the group. And then the next two questions are connected. And answering the question that you had, Linda, about the pulse. We'll get into that as part of that. And then I think that segues well into scheduling the onboarding sessions, which are sort of a time limited thing. And then we can go from there. Does that sound good to everyone? Awesome. All right. So starting with the first, I keep having to move my things around. All right. So what do new members need to know about for onboarding? And Circle starts with Ben, so I will hand it to you first.
Cool. And I'm gonna suggest that because I think Linda brought up a really good question, and it's something we've talked about here, and I think in the other guilds, is also providing like a little thumbnail history of the guilds and what we've been up to so far. So I'm thinking that really Ronnie and Roland, we can answer that. And then Pam and Linda, what do you want to know more about? What's missing? So this guild used to be called Relations, and it actually morphed. So, we just had our second annual design charrette, our second annual planning event. And a year ago in 2023, we had our first ever Lifeboat design charrette, but we had been working at Highgrove. So, it's a constant evolution. But one of the things that came up in 2023 was this idea that we needed more ambassadors, and trying to figure out how we recognize that what we're talking about is not easy to deliver coherently in a soundbite. Because there's a lot involved. There's a lot of the Venn diagram aspect of, it's kind of an overlap of this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of new concepts involved in the kind of like we want to work in a different way. So one of the challenges throughout has been, how do we effectively communicate? And so 2023, the idea of ambassadors came up, where we recognize that everyone has a community that they can translate to. And so rather than trying to come up with one message that fits in all of these different contexts, we actually lean into people knowing their own communities better. And so as long as those people understood what we were talking about, they could translate into their own communities. And that was what we thought of as an ambassador. You could kind of take the message over and figure out where there was a connection. And also in that was a need to recruit fundraising or recruit investors of different kinds. So we were also trying to figure out, how do we reach out into and identify people who might be interested in investing. And that kind of turned into the Relations Guild, which was really focused on that outreach. But in the middle of actually, I guess probably pretty early on, when we started to get into it and actually trying to figure out what outreach looked like for us, I don't know that we actually made a decision. I think we just sort of identified, and actually be interesting to see other people's memory of that, but that we wanted to work differently, and we wanted this to be fundamentally relational. And so that's why we kind of morphed into the Relations Guild. And broadly speaking, that was tasked with the newsletter and the website and the messaging, but also things like hospitality was kind of part of that, inviting people to the farm and hosting events and potlucks and things like that. And of course, there were fewer of us, and we were all kind of, the 3 or 4 of us were kind of doing everything. And so then I think in a very healthy turn this year, and also in part because Ronnie then, left here being on the campus and relocated to Texas. So that also changed sort of the the relationship of the work of the guild. And likewise, as part of the this design charrette, I think we more clearly differentiated. So some of the things that used to be relations in the Relations Guild are kind of being handed off to Heartwork. Or that's those it was, if you can think about it, it's almost like it was a cell and it's sort of dividing. And so part of what we're doing is sort of figuring out which part gets handed off to the outreach and networking, and which part goes and lives with Heartwork and philosophy. And it's really, I mean, you know, it's kind of an artificial distinction, but, you know, trying to pull out these different kinds of functions. And so I think the things that that this guild has in this incarnation, the aspects that are still relevant were the newsletter and the kind of public facing events and our involvement in other networks. So, you know, how do we relate to Earth Regenerators? How do we relate to the design school? How do we relate to Regenerate Cascadia? You know, some of those questions are kind of what land here. And anyhow, that's my starting point. And should we just stick with the same circle, and you can either ask questions or add? So over to Pam.
I'm having trouble digesting this. What was I thinking that, oh yes, when you were talking about, and I don't know if this is an appropriate way of respond, but I'm responding to what you're saying, taking the message over and making connections. Just personally, that doesn't work for me, because I need to try talk my own understanding of what the message might be, because I have not yet internalized that in a really coherent way. So just in terms of that strategy for ambassadors, I feel that I have overtalked my attempts to convey this, and need to trim my communication. I did do a scan. It was one of my tasks, but I'm not certain if it was for this guild. But I did do a scan of the website and had some comments and feedback that may or may not be appropriate, but it was just my own response to it. And I would like to know where I should put that in Asana. So just give me a direction. I can put it in an email and someone else can put it in. But at the moment, I've got a kind of deer in the headlights mental freeze, and I can't, even though I just recently did this, I can't just dig up the juicy bits of what that might be, other than really liking the friendliness and the openness and so on. There was a sense of the helpfulness if the website is treated as a living document, because at the moment it seems like it might be reflecting a quality that existed a year or two ago, or when it was first built, that doesn't correspond to how it is I'm seeing the Lifeboat Academy being now, and specifically the deep relationality, the really warm, inviting human part of it, but also the deep respect for the more than human world that I feel is embodied in everybody. And there are some places in the text where the sort of human-centric part of it is, I think, out of step with where everyone has kind of evolved in that relationship. And then the rest of it you could take a look at. Those were two items. I'm sorry I can't be more focused on that, but I'll pass now to Linda.
Well, I just took a chance at looking at the website, which I've never done. I should have done that a long time ago. So I now know where to go to get a little bit more of my kind of curiousness about what's been done in terms of outreach. So I had something to say. Well, it seemed, I'm glad I'm here because I did go to the Heart Guild last week, and I was interested in what might the overlap be with outreach. They're obviously very connected, and it it doesn't surprise me that will need to be talked about. Who's doing what in particular? It seems like we're again right at the beginning, and it seems like there has been some history for this group, but still lots of questions. So I'm there with you. I don't really have anything to add at this point. I'm kind of curious, who you've been networking with, and how many of these regional areas are there? I'm very curious. Maybe some of that's on the website, and I just need to look at it. I'll pass to Roland.
I've been unmuted this whole time. I'm glad I didn't make any strange noises. Um, I Yeah, I'm glad that we're doing Circle because I really enjoyed hearing both Pamela and Linda's comments, and it reminded me, in fact, that I did have some sort of housekeeping questions about the website. Um, I'm really curious to read, Pamela, uh, what you've observed. And if I remember, it was in fact in this guild that we talked about reviewing the website and checking to see what might be missing, what it feels like. So awesome. Um, yeah. So in terms of responses, Linda, I agree. I've had the same question about how do we, and this is where I feel, to use a jargony word, I think it's that the difference between the Heartwork and the outreach guilds is emergent, and as with most categorizations, it is a bit forced, um, and because of that, I think that the emergent quality means that there's an opportunity for sort of a more real or organic a way for the guilds to take shape. And who knows, it may be that we discover that they aren't different enough, that they merge. Anyway, so I am curious to see where things go with the questions that come up with both guilds. One of the things, anyway, that's not for right now. So yeah, I think that that's all I have to say for the moment. So
Is there any history that you think you want to add
I was just
or
trying to think of
context?
something and nothing was coming up, which is why I was passing.
Okay.
So I will make note if anything comes up. So over to Ronnie.
In terms of history, I guess I could speak a bit to sort of the practical, what does it actually look like? Like what does the guild do? There's the conversations about ambassadors and messaging and being relational and sort of how did all of that translate? And in the past year and a little bit, um, Ben set up a CRM, which is a customer relationship management, which doesn't sound very relational, but it's a way for us to keep track of all of our contacts, all of the networks that we're people and networks that we're connected to, and also keep track of different people's interests in the project. and also the interests they have, their personal lives and the networks they're connected to. We also got the website together, which I think it sounds like a review of the website would be really great to do soon in this guild. We could all come together at maybe at our next meeting or something and do a sort of an in-depth website review. And we also do email. We were doing email campaigns back starting, or when I started in fall of 2022, email campaigns to get the word out about lifeboat circles and navigation sessions and different events. And then we started doing email campaigns around recruiting investors. And that was around the time as we were getting into that we were thinking about how do we be more relational, rather than sending out mass emails and mass social media things, which we still do email and social media, but how do we integrate more, one-on-one meetings with people and conversations and ways for people to actually get to know us and participate and see where mutual benefit might be. Yeah, I think that's the gist of what I wanted to share. So we have a lot of tools that we've developed, with a lot of effort and work has gone into them. And I think it does make sense to do kind of a review of what we have. And that's also already one of our identified seasonal priorities. So this is good. Circle is working. We already have that written down. So, and that's also a way for folks to get more familiar with what's already in place. And also to allude to what Pam said, everything is alive. So everything is always up for editing and renegotiation and adding and moving things around. And then, there was a question. Oh yeah, I guess that's what I have for now in terms of the background and what people need to know. But it sounds like by moving through some of these priorities we've identified is the way to really onboard people into the guild. Over to you, Ben.
You're muted.
Thank you. Thanks, Ronnie, for bringing it back to what does that look like, and actually this bridges to debriefing the design school stuff. I think it's really important that we, keep the eyes on the prize kind of thing, and so remembering how outreach and network fits in with the overall mission of the Lifeboat Academy to become a model of resilience and regeneration. And the centrality of we have all identified having a physical campus is really core to that. Having really, it's about having access to the land, and we're all building towards that. And having a physical location where people can be establishing a different relationship with the land. So it's one of the ways where the danger of breaking things up into guilds is that the guilds can then kind of take on a life of their own that moves away from their function in the larger organism. But likewise, it's the keeping ourselves grounded in terms of like, what are we doing? And, the newsletter needs to get out. And if we're going to host an event, somebody has to figure out when that happens and how to invite people and who to do it. And and I think a lot of times in negotiating between Heartwork and network and outreach, the fact that somebody has to do the work is going to create some clarity, right? Likewise, I think the review of the website is great, but how do we do that? How do we make sure we stay on the 20 that gets us 80? Because I have been in organizations who do nothing but have a website, and they're constantly reviewing and updating it, but there's, nothing actually happens. So it's the both and of balancing things. And hopefully, I guess, I too feel like, kind of just being part of these conversations that's the heavy lifting of onboarding, is to kind of, come up to speed on what it is we're trying to do. So hopefully I too am appreciating the circle, and I think we're getting really great information, and hopefully it's also working and not further confusing Pam and Linda. So Pam, over to you.
I'm going to put in the chat the link. You probably know about it, but the link to the Decolonial Futures page, where that's where the collective that Vanessa Andreotti is with sort of loads a lot of their stuff. And it was in that context I was first noticing and seeing the value of even just having it stated up front that these are documents that are alive. And so even if it's not possible to always keep them up to date, the notion of introducing them to the reader as that as an intention, I think, is possibly as important. And it's not surprising that you guys are already on that. What else? Let me see. So much of this for me is a new experiment. And so I have to give myself a bit of forgiveness for not feeling utterly in step with everything that has gone on, because, of course, I wasn't there. So, no surprise. And the little things that were occurring to me while you were speaking, Ben, have disappeared from my gray matter. I think I've sprung a leak. Maybe that's my big turn. So I think rather than stalling and trying to retrieve something that's who knows where. Linda, please.
I really don't have much to say. I'm in learning mode, so I'm going to pass off to Roland.
Are we still on history, or yeah, because I feel like you've pretty much covered
Yeah.
what needed to be said there. So I'm happy to pass.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, I was thinking it seems like we're segueing pretty naturally into so we've talked about what outreach is and what it has looked like and what is it looking like now, and what are the tangible things that we need to do as part of outreach and network. So we were going to talk about actually, let me go back to the agenda. What is the pulse, the right pulse for lifeboat circles and navigation sessions? And I want to answer Linda's question about what do we mean by the right pulse. And so, and I guess this is kind of historical too. So previously, a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, we had regular ongoing lifeboat circles and navigation sessions. I don't even remember necessarily what the frequency of both of them were or was, but they were pretty regular. We were regularly sending out in the newsletter, letting people know when the dates were and how to sign up. And we haven't been having lifeboat circles in about a year or so. We have had navigation sessions ongoing. So we've been talking about weaving back in the lifeboat circles, and how they are a really great relational way for people to get a taste, not only about a taste of what this is about, but also how we work and how we're really about people bringing themselves to this work. And what, it's the question, what does a lifeboat mean to you? So it's not we're telling other people what a lifeboat is, but it's giving people that opportunity to think about and experience for themselves what that could look like, and also to hear from other people in circle the way that we work, what that means for them. So we've been talking about starting those up again. And basically, the question at hand is, what is a frequency for circles and navigation sessions that seems doable at this time, that makes sense? And also, who is going to be a potential question is who, or consideration is who is going to be facilitating them, at least for now. Maybe we can think about for this season, basically. So that is the current focus. And I'm going to pass to Ben to see what he has to add.
Well, and I think just to put a little bit more context on it, just the recent context, partly the fact that we aren't doing the lifeboat circles. What does the lifeboat mean to you? We did a whole rash of them when we were trying to get more people engaged. And, it was a really great way of introducing people. Like Ronnie was saying, it's not, we don't have we don't have the blueprint for what a lifeboat is. And working together, we're all shaping what that is. And it's also tapping into, we're not rallying people around a technical or a jargony term. It's really about this image of building a lifeboat. And so it allows people to sort of bring more to it. I think, Pam, in terms of the gesturing towards decolonial futures, it's that idea of kind of using almost an aesthetic rather than an analytical, what are the points? Anyhow, we kind of stopped doing them because the people that, everyone went through their lifeboat circles, and we kind of had a sense of where we were all. And now we're bringing more people in. And actually, what prompted this was getting questions where people say, I don't know what this means. And actually realizing it's not our job to answer that question. Like, it means what we all think it means, right? And in that idea of the circle, which is no one can kind of veto other people's aspect of what is important in the circle, but we don't all have to focus on the same thing at the same time. So being able to see the interconnection about how these parts fit together. And that was actually the lifeboat circle. What does a lifeboat mean to you? They were really cool conversations. Like, I miss having them. And I think that you could have them. And I think that's what kind of came up for me, I think recently, is I was thinking of them as the first step in bringing people in. But I think there's actually a deeper process there of constantly weaving together what our evolving idea of the lifeboat is. And we actually do it internally. So, when we do our coordination circle, we start with, why are we doing this? What is it we're trying to do anyhow? Why does it matter? And where are we now? As a way of kind of anchoring in, it's always evolving, but so what's our current snapshot? Anyhow, I feel like, and that's part of it, is the lifeboat circles are really about how do we weave together a shared understanding of what this collective project is, that can both be somewhat stable enough that people can find their way in, but also change over time. And then the navigation sessions are really meant to be more a shared personal process. It's kind of more of a way of working. So they sort of dovetail, they do different things, the navigation sessions and the lifeboat circles. So I guess with that, I'll pass over to Pam.
Yeah, yeah, the lifeboat circles, I guess that would be another example of something that has its own internal pulse, and those were that was an exhilarating way to get introduced to this project, and um, also, and I can see having a pause, but I can also see maybe having, in terms of the temporal pulse over, like maybe even on a quarterly basis, because it would be great to be able to have a way of, like, when you think of onboarding with people that I talk to, of saying, well, in a month, this is going to be happening. And you want to find out what it is, well, you go. One of the things that I really love about the experience post that particular circle is how it seems my understanding of what a lifeboat is as a answered in that relational way of whoever happens to be in the room and whatever happens to be at the time. As circumstances change, so does the answer to what that is. And it's exciting to get an internal update, like on a personal level as well as a collective level. Um, and yeah, it reminds me of the fact that as a living process, um, there needs to be that air breathed into it. And yeah, so I think it would be a great idea to um, have a springtime lifeboat navigation. Yeah. Linda.
Um, I think I've been to one of the lifeboat navigation meetings. In fact, I think I brought some people to one that Ben, you facilitated. It was a slideshow, and it was very good. Um, I mean, I can give some feedback at another time. I'm assuming that's what I went to. Uh, that'd be really good to have that again. But to have it maybe with internally, so it seems like, as I recall, uh, it really did attempt to define the mission of what the Lifeboat Academy is about, and it asked very penetrating questions of the attendees. Although my attendees, well, that's a whole other story. I won't go there. But I'm not even sure that's what that was. So I guess that's a further question I have. Did I attend one of the lifeboat sessions? And if I didn't, I'd really like to do that.
I'm gonna break circle just because it's a factual thing. No, you attended a webinar which kind of
Ah,
lays out how we work and why we're working this way, and it is meant to be a kind of the introduction to what the Lifeboat Academy is all about. But it's more webinar-y, and the Lifeboat Circle is really just we just keep going around, and the question is, what does building a lifeboat mean to you? And there's probably not much more structure than that, except we go around until it feels like we're ready, and then it's, so where do we go with from here? And a bit of a closing, but there's no PowerPoint, there's no structure, there's no content. It's really about how do we co-create, what does building a lifeboat mean to you? And I agree with Pam that it's very exhilarating, and it's anyhow, I will stop there. But no, you did not attend a lifeboat circle yet.
well, I look forward to it. That's really all my input is right now. That seems to be a very important process. Uh, and I wouldn't even call that outreach. I'd call that it's more of an inreach. It's like a very deep, meaningful inreach to the people, who are involved at this time. Yeah. Over to you, Roland.
Actually, it's the inReach that makes it confusing for me whether or not it's Heartwork or or outreach. And I don't know, I can't remember where we were going to be talking about that. So just for that, I just want to say there's different ways of framing the same thing. So I could easily see how it makes sense to have the lifeboat circles with the outreach, and there could be an argument for it to be Heartwork, but ultimately it is, where does it work? So that's just my thinking behind it. I was also reminded of the sort of the story of the lifeboat circles, because I was, just as people were talking, I was started having these memories, and the very first lifeboat circles were in person only. And in the workshop area at Highgrove, because it was outside, there were these big barn doors on both ends of the building, so COVID was not a problem. And then winter hit, and we had to be inside, and so we tried to do it online, and then discovered that online it was easier to reach further out, but not so much closer in, as much closer in. And that sort of, I think it has influenced the way that things have taken shape. Um, and it also reminded me that in terms of the experience of the lifeboat circle, that even for those of us who have been attending lifeboat circles from the very beginning, each session is different and transformative. And at the same time, the things that come up are similar, and come with different voices from different people, which is equally fascinating. That when you're in a circle, you discover that you in front of me are having the same ideas that I've been having, and you're saying them maybe with different words. And so it's, anyway, that's really fascinating in itself. It makes me wonder if in fact a form of onboarding would be to have an outreach guild lifeboat circle, so that everybody who's part of the outreach group, maybe it could be outreach and Heartwork together, to have an intra guild session, where it's the we use the format for the lifeboat circle conversations, and then you actually get the experience before opening it up. So that's a possibility. Yeah. So I think that's I'm sort of, I know that I'm adding to the history after we talked about the history, but that how my brain works often. So I will pass to Ronnie.
Roland, in response to your question about is it outreach, is it hard work, I will respond with another question, which is, ¿por qué no los dos? I really think it's both and I think that you actually covered that at the end when you said if we had a lifeboat circle with both guilds, but it's really what aspect of this is outreach responsibility and what aspect is held by the Heartwork Guild. And we can absolutely work together on the lifeboat circles or anything else that seems relevant. You know, the guilds there can be cross-pollination and coordination. Oh, wait, we have a coordination circle. To figure out how that happens. So I think that's another benefit, or that's another aspect of looking at the Lifeboat Academy as an organism, and think there are separate organs, and yet there's always things moving between. I wanted to kind of segue a tiny bit, but still in the same vein of talking about the function of the lifeboat circles and navigation sessions, not only as offerings to help people think about their lifeboats and connect with other people, but also as a way to, like from the beginning, the intention was for other people besides the core team or besides people in the caretakers of these guilds to be facilitating these circles. So this is a way that we would really love for folks to get more involved. You can host navigation sessions for the Lifeboat Academy community the way that we have been. You can host navigation sessions for the communities that you're specifically part of. Same goes for lifeboat circles. These are really tools that have been designed to be held by lots of different people and lots of different places and contexts. And that's really leaning into the Lifeboat Academy as a mutual aid network, as a way that we support other people to find better ways of working on their projects, finding more connection, more relationality with their communities, more ideas, more inspiration. So I wanted to frame it that way from the get-go as we start talking about how could the rhythm look for this season of what we're offering. So what we've been doing lately is we've been having an every other week navigation session. And we used to have, I think before that, we had a navigation session every week and they were at different times. And people were really only coming to the other one of them, which was every other week. So we just defaulted to that. But considering, the people who come to them say they're really useful and really helpful. So we could think about a more frequent navigation session circle, which again is made easier if there are multiple people who are facilitating them. And then in terms of lifeboat circles, I think they used to be once a month-ish. I could be wrong. It could have been every other week-ish. But I would say at least once a month would be awesome in terms of the greater, the Lifeboat Academy hosting them. And then, like I said before, other people could host them for their own communities. So I just wanted to lay all of that out as we get into the conversation. Over to Ben.
Yeah, as always, Ronnie, you anticipate what I was thinking about saying, and that is why, because like Roland was saying, there are lots of different ways of framing it. And originally, we were thinking of this as one of our prime outreach tools, because getting people to have that conversation, it's also what we promote in the webinar about how to build your own lifeboat. Is the first step, is actually the second step, is you invite people that to have this conversation who may want to work in your project. And it's, and it's sort of, doesn't have to get, what does whatever your project name is, what does building a village mean to you? What does, what does decolonizing mean to you, or whatever, any topic. But I think we just thought of it, I think of it as, it's such a different and relational, like Pamela, what you were saying, because it is a relational way of bringing people into a project. It's not, here's the project, it's set in stone. This is what we're doing. And, you can sign up on our volunteer list to the side. It's actually, no, we are co-creating this, and it's a way of inviting people in. And it's also, I think, a good way of figuring out how the pieces fit. Because like I said, building a lifeboat is going to mean different things to different people. They're going to have a different emphasis. You can still see how it all fits, but like, I'm not interested in that aspect. I'm interested in this aspect. Now, all of a sudden, people can start to organize themselves around those different interests. So that's where the outreach part comes in. But I do like the idea. I think, yeah, monthly feels, in answer to the question really of the pulse. Yeah, I think monthly, at least seasonally, and I think there would be real value in monthly. Yeah, especially if we could find a way, and I could, like, a facilitation way of there being kind of an accretion of the conversation, like that the conversation builds on itself in a way. But that's just a kind of a random aside. Yeah, and I feel like it feels like we're kind of feeling right now we're doing the navigation session every other week. I think that's reasonable unless or until we have more interest and or have people who want to learn how to host their own. Because that's Ronnie's, really put the finger on it, is it's a tool. We want to promote the use of the tool, not just as a lifeboat, not just an in-house thing, but because we think it's really valuable for anyone building their own lifeboat, building their own resilience network. So how do we give people the experience of it and then give them the tools to keep using it in their own network? So over to Pam.
Well, I'm pretty inspired by the example you set, Ronnie, with your own seemingly seamlessly moving into a hosting role just so beautifully. And I think I agree with you, Ben. I think that in order for it even to be sustainable for the Lifeboat Academy, I think being able to distribute the load of facilitating groups is a good thing for the Academy, as well as for individuals wanting to do that outreach and not feel that not have a bottleneck, for example, if that is a consideration. With regard to the lifeboat circles, I guess I love the way you guys always use an experimental framework. What the heck, give it a try. And it might be that every once in a while it's a burst once a month for X number of months, and then who knows, but it depends on the season too. Now that it's summer, now that it's summer, what am I thinking? Now that it is spring-like, I guess the consideration is, people are going to be more outdoors than indoors. But yeah, it's one of the things too about the guild structure is that, of course, we're talking about human beings, and so there is no such thing as these siloed spaces, and that we're going to be I guess there's that I think of this isn't the way jellyfish behave, but I've got this vision of jellyfish merging and not, like joining in and then getting bigger and then small, this kind of thing. That there's, anyway, you guys get the drift, and I think that it seems to me as though the guilds will self organize according to their needs and how they're interrelated, because we are all interrelated. I think that's enough for now, Linda.
Well, I'm very curious now. I kept looking a little bit as people were talking at the website, and I'm curious, do we have a newsletter that goes out periodically? So I'm curious about that. It seems to me if we have an active newsletter for an outreach guild, that's going to be core in terms of how people know, because I know I've really enjoyed through the years I've been a part of the navigation sessions, and I realized they had been cut back and then they were at different times, and it was very hard for me to, as someone not related to the academy formally, it was always very hard for me to know when they were going to happen, except if I would be be on top of my email, which I'm not always, especially not right now because I don't have much going on. So I don't always, look at my email at the same time every day, that kind of thing. So I miss things. So it'd be nice if there was an actual newsletter that would come out that would, say when events were happening. And like I keep saying, I'd love to come and visit the farm sometime this summer. So it'd be really wonderful if I guess the website or the newsletter would have, things that are going on in the farm, and, it would be more invitational for someone like myself to get more involved that way. So I would just encourage, as someone who's new and is trying to understand what's going on, any way you have to help people understand, like me, who are not on the farm, what's happening, that would be really, really helpful. And it seems like there are some great ways of outreach. I mean, the navigation session is a really great way, but then my marketing part of myself would say, well, how are you getting the word out? I mean, how do people know about it? I don't even know how I got to know about it, except suddenly I was getting emails from Ben and I said, I'll try this. And I always liked it. So I hung around, but it seems like you could have a much larger following if that was something you want to do. Oh, and the other question I have is, do you have times when you train facilitators? Like, I guess Ronnie you just became one. So do you have train the trainer sessions so that the technology, the sessions, the workshops that you do have in place and that you have thought of, like the one that I guess I attended, the webinar, you're helping people learn how to communicate what you're doing. So that's all for now. Roland.
Well, I'm going to let Ronnie speak more to it because they are responsible for it. But there is a newsletter, and I'm curious if maybe if you're not registered for it, just adding your email address to the mailing list. And for me, that your comments bring up some interesting things about um, participating in what goes into the newsletter and what's the wording that's needed and what are the ways in which we can get the word out that there is a newsletter and you know um, I have questions also about how to better use our social media that we put stuff out, but I, I I think it's getting a bit stale. Yeah, I think that is a topic of conversation that we could have, and that I would suggest that we add that to upcoming agenda. So, and that's, oh, and also I wanted to say, when I was talking about the Heartwork and outreach, I was saying son ambos. I agree that it's both, and it's becoming actually clearer for me how it can be useful to have them as separate, and that really when in talking about the networking is what really brought it forward for me that the networking really is it's in the name, outreach and network, but it is about things that have to do with reaching into the outside world. And when you were talking about the Lifeboat Circle being about showing people who are showing people how to be able to have their own Lifeboat Circle conversations, that smacks of outreach, of networking outwards, while the hard work is about uh, I guess what goes into the outreach, at least in the hard work and philosophy. It's about how does the Lifeboat Academy think of itself, and how does it have a relationship within itself. And so I think it's great that there's so much crossover in the membership between the two guilds, because I just think that there's a usefulness in keeping those distinctions, or if in my mind those are the distinctions, and there's a usefulness in keeping them distinct, and even though the same people are on the same on the same guilds, a lot of them anyway. So over to Ronnie.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense too. And yeah, so the newsletter we've been calling the weekly email, and I've been sending one out every week for months. And every weekly email has the list of events that are going on that week. Lately, it was all about the charrette process and the different guilds and onboarding and getting involved. And so yeah, definitely, Linda, I can check our MailChimp list to make sure that you're on the list. I have also been sending you reminder emails for the navigation sessions. I don't know if I've been doing it. I think I've dropped the ball a few times, but I try to send that email out. I did send one out earlier today. But yeah, that's a good point about making sure people know about our list and that they're getting the newsletter. And we are transitioning to having the newsletter go out every other week. So it'll be a little bit more fleshed out. And also, I won't have to do a newsletter every week, which will be nice. Because oftentimes it's just like repeating the same stuff over again. So hopefully they'll be a little bit more interesting now. But I also wanted to respond to the proposed having a lifeboat circle once a month. Sounds really good to me. And keeping with the bi-weekly, as in every other week navigation session sounds good. Oh, and in terms of how we train people, we don't really do any sort of separate training for facilitation. The way that we work in the guild with our badges, with anything that you want to learn how to do, is you first shadow the thing. So, for example, for a navigation session, you participate in a navigation session or a few of them. And then you would co-facilitate a navigation session with an experienced facilitator. And then you would facilitate on your own with the facilitator there to shadow you and sort of support as needed. And then whenever you feel comfortable, you can start facilitating them completely by yourself, no training wheels. Same would go for lifeboat circles as well. But yeah, that's basically, it's not really any extra work for anyone to get into being able to facilitate. Um, so yeah, at this point, I don't think I have anything else to add. Over to Ben.
I will say that the outreach is much harder than you think, because we have been following all the rules about, when we post in social media, when we have something that we want to get the word out, we don't just post it on our social media, we post it in related groups. So we often post things in like, what's the retro suburbia group, and in permaculture groups, and in regenerative groups. And so we social media, we have our consistent email, we send out requests in our network for people to pass on the information to other people they think might be interested. And it's just hard to get, it's the attention economy, right? It's just kind of hard to get people to notice. And Ronnie is right about the shadowing. And also we do have a series of webinars. That the one that you attended was the first one. And then there are like how-to webinars for people that want to build their own lifeboats. And the reality is we just haven't had a critical mass that made it worthwhile to put those on. So we've got all the materials, we've demoed them, like we've actually used them with people, and they seem to work. But we've been waiting we want to be responsive, right? We want to actually, if there's interest, then we have the materials. It's kind of just in time learning. But yeah, we've been trying to get the word, and any and all help in terms of, ways that we can be doing that more effectively. But there's been a lot of effort. I mean, a lot of effort, including really carefully crafting the messages, testing them out in a number of different audiences. It's just hard work. And I think what I'm also noticing, I'm noticing the time, and I feel like we kind of are landing on, we have a sense of what the right pulse for lifeboat circles and navigation sessions are. I think we also pretty much covered, at least in the moment, it's always an evolving target, but I feel like we covered what do we need to know to bring new folks up to speed on the guild. We can continue to add to that, but I'm actually thinking that task is kind of done. And I have been taking some notes in the Asana task about priorities, because we've had a couple of different ideas that came up. And I think, Roland, I think that's the agenda item for the next meeting, is to to talk through those priorities. Where do we really want to put our effort? I can just what I've captured in the priorities is, in terms of ongoing chores, we've got the newsletter and hosting navigating via tensions conversations, reviving the lifeboat circles on a regular basis, and the social media posts are all kind of in terms of our regular ongoing chores, plus updating the website to make sure that event information is current. And then in terms of potential things that we could work on, a more comprehensive website review, reviewing the other tools that we have, the webinars and the other materials, training new navigation session or lifeboat circle facilitators, and improving the effectiveness of our outreach through the newsletter and social media. So I have that captured for a future conversation. I don't think we have the time to get into it today. But anyhow, that's where it feels like to me. So I guess I'm proposing we kind of do a little wrap up, and then it would seem like, well, then the question is, what else can we get done in the time we have left? Can we get anything else done there? So Pamela, over to you. Any last thoughts on this topic?
Golly, I know I have to speak quickly, and so I'm God, I'm going blank. Let me think. Let me look here. The newsletter frequency. I know they are really labor intensive. You might even want to think once a month. The shadowing, that's very instructive. That might even be the kind of thing that you might want to put into a newsletter or something, but I wonder if there's even a place on the website to show that this is the kind of technology that you have. Likewise with sociocracy and various things like that, that having that kind of information about the tools that are used and how to use them, or where to go to find out. But the shadowing, that was very interesting the way you described that, Ronnie. And it just made it all, I mean, it seems obvious, but it makes a difference to have it so clearly articulated. And also the need to have, again, that distributed carrying of the load. I've got this curiosity, Ben. You were going to give an update on your feeling about the learning journey, but I don't know if there's going to be time for it, so I'm going to shut up. So maybe there will be time for it. Linda.
Thank you. Again, I'm just trying to clarify for myself, but it seems like in the newsletter, you have an opportunity to get a lot more people involved in what's happening. Now, I don't know that you're necessarily ready for that, but even having a point person who could take interested parties, such as myself, who are new to the project, who might want to facilitate. I mean, I wouldn't even know who I would call. I'd probably call Ben because you're the only person I really know. But it would be good, I think, in the newsletter to have point people for new people to your Lifeboat Academy to know who to contact if they want to get more involved in whatever ways, are being offered. And I now have a better feel for what network and outreach is, and it really is your marketing arm to the public, what you're doing. So, I would be happy to help in any way. I have a marketing background. So, it's been a satisfying meeting for me to get a lot of clarity now that I have been here with you all. So thank you, everyone. And I've been saying your name wrong. I call you Roland, but you'd like to be called Roland. Roland, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And since moving to BC, I haven't been insisting. So there's no harm, no foul. But thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was wondering if we had a few moments to debrief, since I think both Ben and Pamela assisted are. Can you say that in English? Did I say that right? Anyway, went to.
That was a Frenchifying thing. Yep.
It was a Frenchifying. Just all of a sudden, it was discordant. Went to the thing this morning. So if I don't know if we would have a few minutes just to just to do that, or if that, I don't know what size conversation that would be, but and yeah, if that's all I'm going to say. Over to Ronnie.
We also still need to schedule the onboarding sessions, and I really want to get that done today if possible so that we can start putting that out there. So yeah, there's these two topics that I think are both important. So um, I I kind of want to I propose that we do the one that's kind of sloggy first, which is scheduling, and then we can talk about the more interesting thing after that. Um, so we have three onboarding sessions that we want to schedule. The Sociocracy 101, the Slack session, which is kind of morphed into onboarding level 1, which is, yeah, we actually have already a thing, what I don't know what else to call it, called onboarding level 1, and then an Asana how-to onboarding. So those are the 3 sessions, and we did a poll to see when people are available, and I guess let me see if I can pull that up quickly-ish. Um, yeah, hold music. Imagine hold music in your head. Oh, that was a win to me. I don't even know. Ben, you tend to be more quick with these things. Would you be able to simultaneously look for it while I look for it?
You're muted,
I
Ben.
found it. Haha. It's because I asked for help that I was able to find it faster.
That's a metaphor.
Yep, I know. Thank you. Thank you, mentor. Um, All right, so these are the times, the dark green are the times when the most people are available for onboarding. So we have 3 sessions to schedule in the next couple of weeks. And these look fairly similar, somewhat similar-ish. But Fridays seem to be fairly good for people, as well as Tuesday. And also, I'm sorry, this is Central Time, and you are all in Pacific Time. So I think maybe this is not the most helpful thing to look at.
Can you put the link in the chat and then
Yes,
I'll click on
yes.
it. And it is kind of out of date, but I think we can sort of take as a rough,
Yeah, estimate.
yeah. All right, and now I'll share.
And
Great.
so the time signatures you've changed it to,
Hang on,
okay, so it ends up being 2 o'clock in the afternoon for Fridays, this 22nd.
yeah, yep, for the 22nd. And it does look like, yeah, we could do next week at 3 for one.
On
And
Friday?
no, Tuesday. I was thinking like a week from today,
Okay.
because 3, I mean, again, the date, it's a little out of date, but I wonder if we can just assume that generally that's going to be a better time. I don't know. I hate scheduling. I hate everything about scheduling.
I
And I
know.
will shut up now.
We're
I
all in
feel
this
like
together.
Thank you.
we're popcorning a little bit, so is it
Yeah.
okay if I jump in? I'm wondering if we can use the information from this to propose dates for people, because given that it is a little bit out of date, things may have changed for individuals. But if we're able to, instead of saying one time and that there's a whole bunch of people who can't come, if we offer a couple of times based on this information and see which one works best for people, that's extra work. So I'm not attached to it. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get as many people as possible with as little fuss as possible.
How long will these meetings be, the onboarding?
An hour. That's the plan, 60 minutes.
Well,
And the other thing too is the plan is we'll do them with people live, but then we'll record them and post them. And so they'll be available once we've recorded them, then they're available for people, whenever they have the time. But it would be nice, the more people we have there, the better questions you'll get, right? So if we don't have anybody there, we won't get the value of the questions. I'm resistant to, sending it out again, especially, yeah, but that just might be me being impatient. We'd have to wait, get the feed. We wouldn't be able to schedule anything for 2 weeks because the newsletter, we'd have to make the
Yeah.
request and then schedule them 2 weeks in the future and then have the newsletter go out. Whereas if we just pick some dates or some times now, we can put it in the newsletter and, have it on the calendar. And we could pick them for further along
when will the newsletter go out?
today or tomorrow.
Well, it looks to me like if you can give people a little bit more than a week, if you did it for a week from Friday at that hour, 2 o'clock, is that Pacific time?
Yeah,
I think,
that's specific.
I mean, that gives people over a week. I mean, part of why I don't go to things is if I don't see it until the very day, I may not have planned it into my day. So, giving people time to get it on their calendar. But are you afraid because things change, so we don't know what people might be doing a week from Friday? That would be the 29th, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be the 29th. Well,
Pamela has her hand up.
oh, sorry.
And I was just going to say, yeah, go for it and then see what happens. But I can also see the value in, giving people a lead in of, you probably have a pretty good idea of what your responses are, who the usual suspects are, how far you want to. Anyway, I'm good either way.
I mean, I would even be good this Friday if you wanted to try it. I'm probably a very, well, I'm a suspect anyways, one.
I'm just going to stop share because I want to look at my calendar too.
I couldn't go past 4, but I could do a 2 o'clock, 2 to 3, and, go over a little bit on 3.
Yeah,
Actually,
I think we could do this Friday and then shoot, my Google wants me to log back in. I'm just wondering if we could do this Friday, next Tuesday, like a week from now, and then next Friday. That gives us 3 sessions. And yeah, just go with that.
That sounds good to me. Yeah,
Thumbs up
and I
from
can,
good enough for now, safe enough to try.
and also putting in with that, if you can't attend live and you watch the recording and you have questions, you can schedule an office hours to have a chat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that would
So
be the
which,
same time on Tuesday, 2 o'clock.
I think it was
I think we
2
said
or
3.
3.
I had the networking and outreach on my calendar for the 26th, but that could be wrong. I just took it off.
Yeah, because it's today and then 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only other question is which sessions are happening when?
Well, I think it makes sense to start with the level one onboarding with Slack on Friday.
Okay.
And then, well, and then it's kind of a coin toss. I'm thinking Friday might be an easier spot for people. And so the sociocracy might make more sense on the following Friday and Asana on Tuesday.
So Slack onboarding on the 22nd,
Yeah.
2 o'clock. I'm putting
Yeah.
it in my calendar.
Yeah. And it's actually, we've expanded it a bit because when I was looking, I don't think we have a lot to cover in Slack, but it would be really good just to we do a basic, this is our driver statement. This is what we think we're doing. These are our guiding principles. And like we can do that and Slack, I think, in half an hour, and then that gives a half an hour for questions. So that's the plan.
And then on the 26th, you're thinking about doing onboarding on asana. Is that what you said?
Asana, yeah. Yeah.
At 2 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that is the 22nd at 2 o'clock Slack. The 26th at 3 o'clock Asana, and the 29th at 2 o'clock for Sociocracy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Good Friday.
I have one more question, which is, when do we want to talk about the schedule for lifeboat circles? Navigation sessions are already ongoing, but how soon do we want to get circles going?
I think let's talk. I think probably let's talk priorities first. Let's
Okay.
do it in the context of that. We could probably kick around some ideas. But yeah, it feels to me like we're scheduling and the first onboarding stuff
Okay.
seems enough.
And how do I just send out the Zoom link for those?
It would be nice to get people. We were just talking about having confirmation, giving people something to sign up to, and with a confirmation, so we can set up a Calendly thing. That's probably the
Okay.
easiest way of doing it. Well,
And we also,
yeah, I can
sorry.
send up the Calendly.
Could you
And
do
when-
it? You do it in the newsletter? Let
Yeah.
people sign up in the newsletter? That would work. For me, that would be great. If I knew the newsletter was coming out like every other week or something, and that I could sign up for whatever's being, offered, that would be great.
Oh yeah, and I'll double check that you're on the list.
For the newsletter, yeah, because I don't think I've ever gotten a newsletter.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
And
sure
then
if
what?
I have one.
It'd be great to have something to also share on the. Oh, actually, this is something else. There's the Lifeboat Builders Facebook page that is meant to be for people who are building their lifeboats. So there is the how to use that also. So for something like this, it would be great to have something to post to encourage people who are part of the Lifeboat Builders page, and that's one of the pages that's gone a bit stale. So that's also something to think about.
Maybe we could weave that into talking about priorities next time and how we want to use that page. Ben, while you're in Calendly, could you also double check the navigation session signups for the next few weeks? Because I noticed the one for today was not available.
Oh, okay.
So when I sent a reminder email out, I just sent the direct link. But
Okay.
it was confusing because someone had signed up. So
You are
I'm
doing
not
one
sure.
tomorrow at 10, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I will check.
So in the newsletter, I will put the onboarding sessions once the Calendly links are ready. I will mention the ongoing navigation sessions, and I will mention office hours. Is there anything else people want me to put in the newsletter?
I think maybe something you might think about is in our next session, how do we generate content for the newsletter so that you're not constantly having to do whatever you do? Since I haven't seen the newsletter, I don't even know what's in it. But, to me, the newsletter is really a great organ to the rest of the world. So we should be putting in some, I don't know, articles or things that I don't know, some kind of blog. I don't know what's in it now. So, but that would be something to talk about.
Yeah. And this has been a capacity issue. We've got lots of content, and it's a matter of figuring out how to. And Actually, the problem we usually have with our newsletter is that there's too much stuff in it. We're usually trying to focus it in on the core things that we want people to be signing up for. So anyhow, that's I think it's a great conversation to have and figuring out how to make that work more effective. I would love, I have been desiring a kind of collaborative co-writing part to this and getting more people to be writing some kind of not maybe short form to mid form kinds of pieces to put out there. And anyhow, I would love to have a conversation about how we can get that going.
Have a workshop at the farm and have a brainstorming and exploratory of all different ways of addressing that through poetry, fiction, non-fiction, like small, short, anyway, just something.
Sounds like you have an idea of how that could happen, Pam.
Oh,
Nope, it's being recorded. We have that on record. All right. So are we good? We're good then on content and dates. Awesome. We've gotten
Yeah.
a lot done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording just because this is going to be a long meeting anyhow. And I'll hit recording again and we can debrief. And we'll just have that separate because I think some interesting things might come up there.